No, we actually told Debbie not to do that, and Debbie did it. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is David Johnson. I'm the Assistant Dean for Pro Bono. This is meant to be an informal and fun event, and you just saw why. All right. Welcome to the Pro Bono Recognition Celebration. I want to tell you first what it is, and then we have some speakers, and then we have all these awards that we want to give out. So what are pro bono hours, and particularly with regard to the class of 2022? In Latin, and I tell you later that I failed Latin in high school, but pro bono means for the public good. I tell you I failed Latin because if I mispronounce your name, I really am genuinely trying. The honorees in this room today received absolutely nothing for their volunteer legal work. They didn't receive credit. They didn't receive a stipend. They didn't receive a salary. They didn't receive anything. They simply volunteered their legal work to the public good. And we're very, very proud of them, and we wanted to recognize them sort of at the beginning of graduation weekend. This class volunteered over 74,000 pro bono hours. That's the fourth highest in our recorded history at the school. And I really do have to say, and I mean this very, very, very sincerely, every other class ahead of them did not have a 2-year pandemic in the middle of them. I mean, they need to get some bonus 30,000 hours just simply because of that. And they probably are. They're probably the hardest volunteering class that we've ever had. Also, 233 students in the graduating class, close to half, have volunteered, and that will be the third highest in our history. So what are we giving the students today? For every student who volunteered over 50 hours, they are receiving a certificate from the dean. If you volunteered over 100 hours, and this seems to drive some of the students in the room, they're getting the coveted Silver University Public Service Cord. Something happened in the universe about 10 years ago, and people graduating want to graduate with 1 million things around their neck. So there is that. And then, even better, the Presidential Volunteer Service pin in 3 different color categories, gold, silver, and bronze, depending on the number of hours they volunteered over 100. Quick little tidbit on this. Students like to wear it on their gown. They're very proud of it. And then they're so happy after graduation, they return their gown along with their pin, and the pin is gone. So make sure you keep the pin. All right, our first speaker in air quotes today is our dean, Dean Matthew. Dean Matthew, unfortunately, got exposed to COVID. She's doing great. We talked to her on the phone. Actually, we talked to her on Zoom, which is different than the phone. And she said all that was bothering her was she was just sad that she wasn't going to be here for her events, although she tests every day at 4 o'clock. And she's hopeful to be there the next day. So maybe she'll be at the awards tomorrow or graduation on Sunday. But she wasn't cleared to be here today. Let me just briefly introduce her, and then we have a recorded message from her. The thing I really like, this is Dean Matthew's 3rd year at the law school, about Dean Matthew. If you look at her resume, literally whatever you're talking about, you can find something that she has done in that area. So with regard to pro bono work, when she was at the University of Colorado, she created a Colorado Health Equity Partnership, which was a pro bono public service project there. When she was at UVA, she was the co-founder and inaugural director of the Equity Center, which seeks to build better relationships between UVA and the community with regard to racial and socioeconomic equality. And here at GW, the faculty just finished passing a strategic plan, and one of her 5, 6, I can't count right, pillars of the strategic plan is a real focus on public service and pro bono. And so we thank her very much for that. And so without further ado, here is Dean Matthews, please God, make this work, recorded remarks.
Good afternoon, and congratulations one and all. I am happy to have the opportunity to join you today for this well-deserved celebration of your outstanding pro bono work. This is our first in-person pro bono recognition celebration since 2019, And it is also my first as dean. Yet, as you can see, I'm in my last day of isolation and cannot be with you except virtually. And yet, I could not be more excited than I am to celebrate with you today. After all we've witnessed these past 2 years, it is clear that we need lawyers committed to public service, committed to defending the rule of law, and committed to equal justice under law for all more than ever before. And class of 2022, you have truly set the bar. On behalf of the entire GW Law community, thank you for answering the call and for setting an example for us all. This afternoon's ceremony represents pro bono publico, that is, services for the public good. And this is meant not just in the sense of professional work that is undertaken without pay, but also in the sense of what you have done to expand access to justice to allow all people, regardless of income, to use the legal system to advocate for themselves and their interests. Your class ranks third in the number of students providing pro bono legal services and fourth in the number of total pro bono hours worked in the entire 157-year history of our law school. Now, to be precise, that means that 233 members of the class of 2022 have contributed more than 74,000 pro bono hours to help others. That's an incredible achievement at any time. But I dare say it is an especially momentous achievement during a global pandemic when approximately half of your law school experience was virtual and many pro bono providers were closed or offered limited services. I congratulate you and I thank you on a job very well done. You have passionately represented underserved clients across 16 legal clinics. You've dedicated many pro bono hours to the Mid-Atlantic Innocence Project. You've volunteered your legal services in a multitude of government departments, courts, legal aid foundations, district attorneys' offices, public defenders' offices, projects that advocate on behalf of children, on behalf of international refugees, and that defend the human and civil rights of others, and so much more. You receive no salary, no credit, and no subsidy for your work. Many thanks for your willingness to give so generously during law school as you completed your own studies. I'm energized by your deep commitment and what you've done during law school, but I'm also hopeful indeed that the seeds of service that were cultivated here at GW Law will lead to a continuing commitment to pro bono work throughout your careers. As many of you know, I'm passionate about GW Law. I'm proud of all of the fabulous services and what we're known for across the country and across the world. But I'm also committed to GW Law becoming known as a leader in public interest and social justice. I am delighted to announce, therefore, that we've expanded our law school's public interest commitment. Expanding our public interest community into a center is one of the 6 focus areas of our newly adopted 5-year strategic plan. We've developed a new network of alumni in the form of a new public interest advisory committee, a council that will serve our students in our curriculum. And we've recently increased the number and amount of summer fellowships and grants for students who will work in the public interest and public service sphere. As articulated in our vision statement, we are making real the fact that our students will emerge from a DC-infused education where renowned scholarship and classroom teaching are intertwined with outstanding experiential opportunities. We will make good on our promise to prepare students to shape solutions to the most pressing challenges of our times. The honorees in our room today are already doing just that. Let me put it in the words of U.S. Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. In March 2014, she said, and I quote, "Lawyers have a license to practice law, a monopoly on certain services. But for that privilege and status, lawyers have an obligation to provide legal services to those without the wherewithal to pay, to respond to the needs outside themselves, to help repair tears in their communities." Well, I believe this commitment is already richly exhibited among the students in the class who will be honored here today. Let me give you just 2 examples. One of our honorees, Megan Messier, said, "Pro bono work is fundamental to the practice of law and reminds us that at its very core, the law is a tool for justice, fairness, and equality. Megan went on to say, I have and will continue to make pro bono work a significant part of my practice of law. Another honoree for today, Bethel Etta, said, I've always lived by the saying that to whom much is given, much is expected. She went on to say, I hope I can continue to be of service to others as much as possible throughout my career. So you see, we already have in the class of 2022 our own budding Ruth Bader Ginsburgs. This class is the personification of what we mean by the fact that we are a school that impacts the law and the world. I could not be more proud, more happy, more ecstatic for each one of you that will be honored today. There is another very important group that I would like to congratulate. It is those family members and friends who have instilled the value of generosity, of volunteerism from an early age to those who will be honored today. Parents, families, friends, I know how proud you are of your wonderful graduates who are not only receiving their law degrees this weekend, but also because they took the time to provide service to others, they will be awarded and honored at this ceremony today. Families who produce students dedicated to helping others in this place have a special place in the hearts of all of us at GW Law, and I thank you too for a job very well done. Next, I would also like to gratefully acknowledge members of our faculty and staff. Our decanal staff includes GW Law's pro bono, public interest, and public service dean. So many thanks to Alan Morrison, the Lerner Family Associate Dean for Public Interest and Public Service. And many thanks to David Johnson, the Assistant Dean for Pro Bono and Advocacy Programs. And thank you too to Professor Joan Meyer, the Director of the National Family Violence Law Center. All of you have made a true difference and set a wonderful example for our students. I will conclude with a final salute to our honorees for inspiring us by your passion for public service. I am proud to speak to you directly on behalf of the entire faculty, the entire staff, all who join me in applauding your outstanding accomplishments. Congratulations, and I look forward to your graduation on Sunday.
The dean just mentioned Alan Morrison, and our public interest program is run by my boss, Alan Morrison, and I'm going to invite him to the podium to speak now. And a little bit of information on Alan is there, but he doesn't like introductions.
So thank you all. When I begin these speeches, I usually say it's so nice to recognize many familiar faces. And I guess in one sense I do. I also see masks, which I saw every day for the last year and a half in the classroom. But you didn't come here to hear me speak today. So in the immortal words of Elizabeth Taylor, as she said to each of her 8 husbands, I shall not detain you long. Each of you is here, each of the graduates is here, because in the last 3 years you've acquired a habit. Now in society, when we think about people acquiring a habit, we usually think they're not such good habits like smoking or drinking or watching too much TV or spending too much time on your screen. But the habit you've acquired here is quite different. It's not a self habit, but it's selfless habit. And you have been part of the recognition as a member of the legal profession that you have an obligation to serve others who can't afford to have services provided through the normal means. And so it's a habit that you have, and I hope you keep this habit. But it's not a habit that is entirely selfless. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret, family and friends. The graduates who have engaged in pro bono have actually benefited themselves in many important ways. They feel good about helping other people. They have learned new skills. They have also been given responsibilities, and in pro bono work in the future will continue to get responsibility far beyond what they might have in other circumstances. And so this is not an entirely selfless matter, but it's a matter of great importance to each of them and to society at large. So my wish to you is keep up the habit. It's a good habit, the pro bono habit. Keep it up and find ways to continue to do it no matter what you are doing with your legal career. So go forth, enjoy yourselves, and thank you for being such good pro bono recipients. Thank you. So we're going to move this microphone away.
No, we're not done because they're going to say something.
Oh, after they get
yeah, they're going to talk.
After they get done, we're going to move the microphone away. I'm going to come back up here and present the awards, and the choice is yours. I will either shake the recipient's hand or we will exchange elbows, depending on your personal preference, and I'm willing to do either. So thank you again, and
Thank you, Dean Morris. All right, next we have a few of our other deans here that wanted to wish you well. And I'm going to say big picture well, both because of your commitment to pro bono, but also some of them aren't really going to get other opportunities to sort of speak to you directly over graduation weekend. And they're really proud of you, and they've worked with you for the last 3 years or more. And so first I invite Rosa Solorio to the stand. She's our Dean for International Studies, and she's dedicated her career to public service law.
Good afternoon. It is such a pleasure to be here with you in person. With many of you, I've spent so much time virtually, especially during that time that we were teaching our classes virtually, and it's so amazing to be able to celebrate you in person. It's a really special weekend for all of us. And I just want to say a few things, just a few words, especially coming from the bottom of my heart. I've actually dedicated my life and my career as a lawyer to pro bono work. So this ceremony is particularly significant for me. I just want to thank all of you that are here, that devoted so much time during your legal studies to doing pro bono work. And I really hope that you continue this in practice as well. And I'm so proud of you. I've been very privileged to work with many of you that are sitting in the audience, and I cannot begin to tell you how proud and how much I value all of the work and dedication that you've had during your legal studies. I really hope that the pro bono work that you've done as law students really leads you to a career full of social service, no matter in which sector you're in. You can do public service in any sector, including the private sector as well. And I really hope that you decide to help people along the way, that you use this amazing tool that you're earning this weekend to help and contribute to society. I also want to salute your grit, your spirit, your determination, your deep resolve during your academic studies. I really stand in admiration and in awe today, and I will never forget you. And I also want to say that the problems of our time remind us of the importance of legal education to help our legal and all of our communities. We just went through the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're still going through it, right? We're all hopeful that we go into an endemic soon, but we're still in the middle of a pandemic. We're in a world at war. There's just so many issues around us, and it really reminds us of the importance of pro bono work. It also reminds us of very important values that we really try to instill in our classes and in everything that we do in the law school. I'm talking about human rights and dignity and equality and diversity and inclusion. I really hope that all of you carry those values in whatever you do and during all of your work as lawyers. I close by sending you my best wishes for your health, safety, and wellness, with the hope that better times are to come and that we will surely stay in touch. Congratulations.
Thank you, Rosa. Our next dean is our Dean of Students, Elizabeth Ewart. If you know Elizabeth well, then you probably had a problem in law school, and she fixed it for you. And if you don't know her, well, then you just sailed through law school, and nothing bad ever happened to you. So here's our Dean of Students.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean Johnson, and thank you, everyone, for being here. It is such a pleasure for me to be sort of a bookend for you. You're often the people that, we first meet you when you come to school at orientation, and now here you are at graduation, and what a wonderful ceremony to kind of mark that bookend, and I'm so pleased to have been here at the beginning and the end with you. So congratulations on your accomplishments with regard to your pro bono service. And we should rightly celebrate those 70,000 plus hours, which adds up to, if I did my math right, over 8 years of time that you all put in over these 3 years collectively to do the good work that we are celebrating today. And you're already the embodiment of the good that can be done in the world when people devote their time and talent to helping one another. We've had a few illustrious women quoted this morning, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Elizabeth Taylor, all quote Mother Teresa. The greatest good is what we do for one another. And in that vein, and in addition to my congratulations, let me offer a little perspective about your future. One of the important lessons we learn as children is that we are not the center of the universe. That is the ultimate lesson in adulting. And perhaps you're beginning to feel seasoned at putting your needs behind those of others, your family, your loved ones, your friends, fellow students, and soon your workplace and your clients. Your commitment to pro bono is one way you have demonstrated your willingness to both see and meet the needs of others. But that lesson is not something like the rule against perpetuities that you learn once and then mostly forget, right? Instead, you're just getting started on a journey of ever-increasing selflessness. If you're doing it right, and I know you will become increasingly expert at selfless humility over your lifetime. Side note, if you ever feel like you need more humility, I recommend you consider being a parent. You will learn that the higher you climb the ladder, the more you must serve the needs of others in order to be successful. In fact, here's a little secret. At every new rung of the ladder, what you find there is just a ladder workshop. And when you get there, your job is to get busy in that workshop to build more ladders, not for yourself, but for everyone else. So, happy building, good luck, and congratulations.
To be in equal employment, I will represent the men, and I will quote Robert Kennedy at the very end, all right? All right, so our next dean is our newest dean, although she has probably been at the law school longer than any of us. Shernaz Joshi is in charge of our LLM programs, which is an advanced law degree, particularly our international students in that area. And I invite Dean Joshi to the podium to speak.
Thank you, Dean Johnson. Looking at all of you and what you've accomplished, I'm in total awe. As we celebrate you, I know that for a lot of you, the journey that you ended up in navigating your way to law school and finding your place at GW Law was probably not a straight path, maybe tumultuous, but with perseverance and grit and determination, you all came here, and boy, have you all succeeded. And as I watch the students come in year after year after year, I think this class is incredibly special. Because of what you've all faced these past 3 years for our JDs and for our LLM students who are in our midst, the pandemic was not an easy path to navigate. And yet, with all of that, what you faced in law school, you also did public service. And for that, I commend you. Congratulations to each and every one of you on this amazing accomplishment. Your service made not only a difference to GW Law, but to our community at large, to our social justice system, and most of all to the clients that you worked with and supported and served. I think the difference that you've made is enormous. The contributions are so meaningful, given the time that we live in and what we're all facing, both nationally and globally. And I think what you all are facing with all that you've succeeded with in law school is a bright future, despite of what we see around in the world today. And I think that as you go forward and you look at what the world around you, remember what GW Law stands for. First and foremost, it's the rule of law. Nothing more is more critical than the rule of law in the world that we live in today. And I think each of you has exemplified that in the most incredible way. I know it's your generation, that will continue to create the change for the greater good. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to wish you well and to offer my congratulations. Thank you.
All right, the next slide is me, but this is really a cue for my wonderful volunteers to take their spots because we're getting close to the students coming up on the stage. For the parents, I'm also, in addition to being in charge of the pro bono programs, I'm also in charge of our advocacy programs, which is our moot court, our mock trial, and our ADR competitions, and I give away cotton candy at Dean's Jeans Day. All right. Okay, our final speaker is Andra Chernak, and Andra is also going to be my partner in crime at today's event. We're going to try something. You know, this just gets, I've been here 21 years. It just gets boring if we keep doing the same thing over and over again. So there was actually one nice thing that happened during the pandemic, and that was when we did this event virtually. All the students, their mics were live on the Cisco WebEx event, and you were able to say things about each other, or Rosa or Elizabeth. Alan's not going to say anything. Were able to say something, about you. And so Andra, in addition to making some remarks here, she's going to have a live mic throughout the event. And so, if you want to say something, just wave Andra over. You don't get to give a speech. But, if you want to say something about a classmate, if my lunatic mother were here, she would absolutely run down and tell you about her baby boy. But, whatever you want to do, if it doesn't work, we won't do it again next year. But one thing I've learned with all the pro bono projects I've been involved with, they're not neat, clean, or linear, and so why not give it a shot? Andra, I invite you up to make the final comments and then go with your live mic,
I actually didn't know I was supposed to make comments, but thank you for telling me right before I came up. So one of the things that I work in the Dean of Students office, so Elizabeth is my boss. And one of the things that I get to do in my responsibilities is that I work with transfer and joint degree students, as you can see right up there. And I got a sneak peek at the list, and it just amazes me, the transfer students and joint degree students coming into our community, and also in addition to earning another degree, that on top of all of that, you've taken the time to give to others. So I just wanted to say thank you and congratulations, and with that, I'm doing as I'm instructed. I'm moving this microphone so Dean Morrison can stand here right above the X, and then we're gonna get started just in a moment.
And I just want to briefly thank our wonderful volunteers here. You've already met Debbie Baker from the Career Center. Gail Bell from the Law Library. Holly Eaton from the clinics. Tracy Emerson Spackey from the Law Library. And Rasheen Robinson from Alan and my office. All right, Rasheen, okay, so here's how it's going to work. Rasheen is going to have giant letters, all right? So if you are A or B right now, head on over to the stairs, all right?
Last name.
We're going to line you up.
Last name.
And Rasheen will hopefully, get you in order, and we'll be getting you your bags before you come on stage to pose with Dean Morrison. And we're simply going to call you all alphabetical, and there's kind of a pattern to how this works. Just like every dean had a PowerPoint slide, you each have a PowerPoint slide. And to the parents out there or loved ones, we gave students the option. Some of them, they wrote messages to you. Some of them, they didn't want to say anything, so I looked up in Wikipedia where they worked, all right? All right. Oh, and look at that, the vortex. All right. All right, here we go. We're going to give it a shot. All right, our first honoree is Ashley Allen. Ashley's doing this perfectly. She got her bag and she was walking out with Dean Morrison. She wanted to thank Mom and Dad for teaching her the importance of being generous with her time and helping others. And see, I've already run out of time on Ashley. All right. Number 2, Donna Almula. Donna worked at DV Leap, which works with survivors of domestic violence by challenging unjust trial outcomes.
Congratulations.
Michael Arianis. Michael worked for the Lawyers Alliance for New York, and he wanted to thank them. So there we go. May Lee Bartholomew. No, well, actually, it says Natalie Assad. I'm sorry, Natalie, I'm bad. I've already ruined it. I've ruined the event. I've ruined the event. Natalie worked for the National Network to End Domestic Violence. I'm sorry, Natalie. All right, May Lee Bartholomew. May Lee worked at the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, Immigration and Employee Rights Section. Rorik Borman. Rorik wanted to thank his GW family, and he worked at the New York City Department of Social Services. Rose Beatty. Rose worked at the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. I should be clear on this, too. We only picked out one place they worked. Some of the students worked at many, many, many places. All right, next.
Johnson, before you go any further.
oh.
So to our recipients, just a reminder, there's a photo that's actually being taken, so if you could make eye contact with the lens. We want to make sure that we see the whites of your eyes along with Dean Morrison's.
Thank you, Andra. See,
You're
this
very
is
welcome.
The chime in thing. Daniel Bickle. As you can tell by looking at Daniel, he worked at the United States Marine Corps. Sophia Bradford. They're not booing, they're saying Sophia. Sophia worked at New Leaders. Jesse Brennan. Jesse worked at the National Homelessness Law Center.
E and D, or D and E.
Daniel Brown. It was a tremendous honor for Daniel to serve both in the U.S. Department of Homeland Security as well as the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office. Victoria Brown. Victoria wants to thank her family and friends who have supported and encouraged her throughout her time at law school. She worked at the United States District Court for the District of Maryland. Evan Bursey. Evan wants to shout out to GW Law's terrific clinic program where he worked, especially the Criminal Appeals and Post-Conviction Services Clinic. Lingy Cow. She wants to thank Mom and Dad for their love and support and allowing her to shoot for the stars.
Congratulations.
Alexandra Chen. Alexandra worked for Aquitas, the prosecutor's resource on violence against women. Kathy Chen. Yeah! Kathy worked for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Civil Rights. Izzy Chen. Izzy going once? Izzy going twice. Okay.
She's there.
Oh, she's there. Okay, going back to Izzy. All right. Izzy worked at the United States District Court for the District of Maryland. Catherine Kyoto. Catherine also wants to thank Mom for her endless love and support. Jessica Constant. Jessica was one of 4 students to volunteer at 5 or more different sites. Thank you very much. One of them was the American Bar Association. Cameron Costello. Cameron worked at the Pro Bono Project. I mean, oh God.
It's all about pro bono.
Jordan Cowger. Jordan wants to thank Judge Jackson and the staff at OUII for the opportunity to serve and thank her family for coming all this way to celebrate. Taylor Cross. Taylor worked at the GW Law Public Justice Advocacy Clinic, putting in additional hours above what was needed for credit. Brian Sinova. Brian worked for the United States Security and Exchange Commission. Xiomara
F&G.
Demore.
Sorry, F and G.
Oh, F and G.
F and G.
But I practiced Xiomara Demore, and I got it right. All right. And she wanted to thank her mother, Yannick. Joshua Drumming. Joshua worked at the Cook County Public Guardian. Cyrus Dutton. Shout out to my clinic partner, Rebecca Hughes, and my girlfriend, Alex Morgan, for all the support they have given me this spring semester. I couldn't have done it without you. Jean Marie Ellikin. Jean Marie worked at the United States Senate Committee on the Judiciary.
Gotta get the selfie.
James Elustandu. James worked at the Federal Communications Commission right here in Washington, D.C. Carlisle Engelhart. Oh, you made it. Your husband was so terribly worried you weren't going to make it. And she thanks her husband, Paul, for all of his love and support. And this could not be better. She worked at the Office of Management and Budget. The dean earlier quoted Bethel Etta, and her quote is up here. Bethel, come on down. She worked at Rising for Justice. Rising for Justice is a civil litigation clinic at D.C. Superior Court. It's not that bad. Hannah Fan. Hannah worked at FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, in their Office of Administrative Litigation. Samuel Finn. Samuel worked for the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law. Daniel Fishelman.
No, Daniel.
Moving on. Okay. Daniel, if you come later, we'll go back to your slide. Kimberly Forster. Kimberly's highlight was attending an intimate reception. I can't read it. I'm sorry. I'm getting so old, everybody. She worked for USAID. All right, there you go. It's up there.
H.
Emily Friedman. Thanks, Dad, for always reminding me to use the law for good and to never stop pushing for change. Brittany Galt. Brittany worked at Ashkoa. Ashkoa builds and cultivates a community of change leaders who transform institutions and cultures so they support change making for the good of society. Dana Gibson. Dana worked at GW Law Family Justice Litigation Clinic. Dean Cohen is so sad she couldn't be here to celebrate with you today. She's so proud of you, but she also tested positive for COVID.
So Dana is also a mom during law school, and she teaches Zumba. And she's awesome.
That was really all planned because I really needed to look up my phonetic spelling on the next one. So we have Aneta Golashetsky. Aneta worked at the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Chelsea Gutierrez. Chelsea worked at National Advocates for Pregnant Women, and she wants to thank her parents and friends who have supported her for the past 3 years. Soo Hee Yun Han. Soo Hee Yun worked at the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. Sarah Hall. Sarah worked for United States Department of Justice, Office of Legal Policy.
I&J. I&J.
Cassandra Harrington. Cassandra worked for the District of Columbia Bar Pro Bono Center. Miranda Hernandez. Miranda wanted to thank God, her family, her friends, professors, mentors, an incredible community for always reminding her that there's no greater purpose than to serve others. She loves you all. Yay. Austin Himes. Austin wants to thank the U.S. Department of Justice for giving him the opportunity. And then my eyesight goes again, so you know. It's up there.
Congrats. Thank you. Sure.
Cataract surgery is a lie. Jacob Hochberger. Jacob worked for the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division in the Voting Rights section.
Calling the letter K. Your last name is with K.
Caitlin Hodgman. Caitlin is also one of 4 students to volunteer at 5 or more different sites. Thank you very much. She worked at the National Women's Law Center. Elena Hoffman. Now, you know, I could tell you about her project, but Elena spent yesterday morning, she was getting paid, she's my research assistant, putting every one of these bags together, so I think Elena deserves a round of applause. And if anyone got the wrong certificate, it is Elena's fault. Ustina Ibrahim. Osina wants to thank God for the opportunity to serve her community and for her family and friends who supported her throughout her journey. She worked at the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. Marcus Ireland. Marcus worked for the United States Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Sana Jane. Sana wants to thank Mom, Dad, and Felicia for believing in her. Is Felicia a sibling or a pet? Sibling, all right. Keegan James. Keegan says, having the opportunity to provide pro bono services to various groups in D.C. has been an honor. He worked at the Capital Area Immigrants' Rights Coalition. Marcia Jobeda. Marcia simply wants to shout out to all of you for getting through law school. Nina John. Nina worked at the Human Trafficking Institute. Felicia Kalkman. Felicia worked for the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the Office of Chairwoman Charlotte Burrows. Olivia Rose Kaufman. She wants to thank her family and friends for their love and support throughout her time at GW. She worked at the National Legal Aid and Defender Association. Moheb Kedis. He wants to thank his lovely wife, Tootie, and thank her for her love and support and coffee for the past 3 years and ensuring... Joseph Kennelly. Joseph worked at the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York.
Calling L, if your last name begins with L.
Fatima Khan. Fatima worked at the National Lawyers Guild. John Killingbeck. John wants to thank his family and friends for their continued support throughout law school. He worked at the Library of Congress. Shadon Kim. Christy Kim. Let's go with Christy. Let's do Christy. Christy's easier. I thought this was really nice. Since Christy was a kid, she wanted to work at the World Bank, and we made it possible. Yay us. So there we go.
Hi, sorry, my dad couldn't fly in from Korea because he tested positive for COVID. And I just wanted to thank my dad and my parents. And 아빠 보고 있으면 사랑해요. 감사해요. Thank you.
It took until the case, but that is the theory of how it's supposed to work. There we go. Thank you, Christy. Sarah Kim. Sarah worked for the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York. And Christy, we hope your dad does well and is totally fine and healthy. Alyssa Karakos. Alyssa worked at the Mid-Atlantic Innocence Project, wants to thank her family and friends for their love, patience, and support during her time at GW Law.
If your last name starts with M, head on over to the line.
Cameron Klein. Cameron worked at the United States District Court for the District of Columbia.
When your person comes up, just tell me to get out of the way.
Sarah Kolick. Sarah worked at Human Rights First. We appear to have lost Leron's slide. No, we didn't. Leron Koropritzer. Leron wants to shout out to her mom, Michelle, who's in the audience today, for teaching her at a young age the importance of giving back. Mom, she's just been a joy to work with the past couple years. Nathaniel Crystal. Nathaniel worked for Advocates for Justice and Education Incorporated. They are committed to ensuring that children receive the quality education and a full range of health, social, and support to which they are entitled. Kendall Lawrence. Kendall worked at Bread for the City. Abby Lerman. No, Jessica Lerman. Sorry, it's Jessica Abby Lerman. Jessica worked at the United States Department of Justice. Tia Lewis.
No Tia.
No Tia. We'll come back. Davina Lee. Davina wants to thank the Energy Law faculty, her friends and family for supporting her career development. And she worked at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Ben Liu. And Ben had the best quote of anybody in this: "Your U.S. Circuit judges are cool." Riven Lysander. An enormous thank you to my friends and professors, but most of all to my partner, Kyle. I wouldn't be here without you. She worked at the Federal Aviation Administration. And here's just a little brief interlude. So, I make all these slides. It does get a little stultifying. So this is my personal moment here. She worked at the Federal Aviation Administration. It didn't work. Oh, my God. It's supposed to fly away. Oh, well, it didn't. Okay. Whatever. Okay, Maria Medeiros. Marissa, I'm sorry, Marissa. I met you yesterday. Yeah, I met you. Shout out to Dean Johnson, yes. This is just where God is cruel to me. This name did not come with a pronunciation. So here we go. Francisco Javier Maldonado Andrew.
Oh, no. You gave it your best. No, Francisco.
I gave it my best. All right.
Gave it your best.
Eleanor Maloney. Eleanor worked at the National Center on Protection Orders and Full Faith and Credit.
N and O, which spells no, but we really want folks with the last names N and O to line up.
Nicholas Mastria. Nicholas worked at the GW Law Criminal Defense and Justice Clinic, one of our newest clinics here at the law school.
Congrats.
Iris Mauti Gibson. Iris worked at the Council of the District of Columbia.
Congrats, Iris.
Christine McElhinney. Christine worked at the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia. Brendan McNamara. Brendan wants to thank Mom and Dad. He sincerely appreciates everything you two have done for him. He would not be here without your support. And when I said Marissa's name wrong, this is the name I was thinking. Maria Mendel. There you go. Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board is where she volunteered. The dean quoted her earlier, Megan Messier, and there's the full quote there. Megan worked at the Mid-Atlantic Innocence Project. Jordan Michelle. Jordan worked for United States Air Force Government Appeals. This is supposed to fly too, but I am just not counting on it. It did! It did! Yes! We're gonna show him again. Look, it flew. It worked. Huzzah. Okay. Yes. I figured it out. We're going to invite Jordan back down in a few moments to say something else. Jordan is the president of the Student Bar Association. Cooper Millhouse. Cooper worked at a cool place, the State of Alaska Office of Attorney General. That is not bad. I hope you got to do it live.
Calling the letter P, please line up.
Harut Manassian. Short and sweet. He just wanted to say thank you. New York Supreme Court, Westchester County.
Just wanted to say to my parents, thank you. I love you. And I also want to say thank you to the class of 2022. Congratulations.
Awesome.
Harut Manassian.
He just
I just
went.
did that. I'm sorry.
You're
Okay.
good. You're good.
I'm thrown up. Christina Morgan. Thank you. Christina worked for the Middlesex County District Attorney's Office. Stephen Mott. Stephen worked for Judge Robert Grossman at the United States Bankruptcy Court for the Eastern District of New York. Lauren Munday. Lauren worked at Child Justice, which is a Maryland nonprofit dedicated to protecting children in custody and protective order cases. Iman Naeem. She wanted to thank her family and friends for their unwavering love and support. Alhamdulillah, I tried, for everything always. She worked at the United States Merit Systems Protection Board.
You got a thumb up.
Eden Nebel. Eden worked for the Investment Advisor Association. Natasha Narenberg, who shouts out to justice, may it never rest. Excellent. She worked for the California Department of Justice. Kaylee Odom. Kaylee had the opportunity to work at both the D.C. Superior Court and Georgia Public Defender Council, and it made her even more excited to continue doing public interest work after graduation. Tola Ogorinde. She wants to thank her family who demonstrated the boundless rewards of service within her community. She worked for the PG County State Attorney's Office, and she loves Andra.
She's also earning a certificate in public health in addition to her JD. So.
Chidima Ochakwu. She worked for Project Citizenship, where she helped someone gain their U.S. citizenship. David Pankratz. David worked for the United States Naval Academy.
I don't have it up there, but I also wanted to thank my mother for all her support and her maternal charity. Thank you.
Calling the letter R.
Jen Pantel. Right out of Dean Morrison's playbook, she worked for the ACLU National Prison Project. Braden Parker. Brayden worked for the Federal Communications Commission. Sierra Paskins worked for the Chief Judge of the United States District Court for the District of Utah. John Peter. John Petter. John worked for the Indianapolis Legal Aid Society.
Congratulations.
Dom Petramonico. Dom wants to thank Professor Jones and the Small Business Community Economic and Development Clinic, his family, and his nonna. Dom is Italian. Sammy Peash. Sammy is not only one of 4 students to volunteer at 5 or more sites, she's also one of 4 or more students to volunteer over 1,000 pro bono hours, the only student to do both. Thank you very much.
Wow. S, calling the letter S.
Chadley Pittman. Ms. Pittman worked at the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. Clara Pomper. Clara worked for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Office of General Counsel.
Calling the letter S.
Yes, so I would be remiss if I did not thank my mother for all of her love and support, because I could not have done it without her, and because she is my ride home.
You were nailing it till the end there. Brendan Powell. Brendan worked for the U.S. SEC. Alexis Pazanski. Alexis worked for the Amera Legal Center.
I just want to take a moment. So last spring, myself, Jesse Brennan, Megan Messier, and Keaton Shapiro, who are all here, we created a proposal to reform our public interest program. I'm really happy to say that that proposal became the basis for Dean Matthews' strategic plan. And we were able to increase the grant sizes for public interest summer funding. So congratulations to all of us, and congratulations to everyone in this room. Thank you.
Magdalena Zonak. Not here? Okay, going on. Francesca Pugliese. She wanted to thank her parents, Sandy and Franco, her sisters, Maggie and Marissa, her dog, Rocco. I knew there was a dog in here somewhere. Let's see, next.
Calling the letter T. If your last name starts with T, go ahead and line up.
Kavya Ralabandi. Kavya would like to thank her family for their love and support throughout law school. She worked for the Southern District of New York Government Service.
Congratulations.
Peter Rao. He wants to thank his parents, Brian and Mary Rose, because without their constant encouragement and support, he wouldn't be here. Did I do that? Okay. He worked for the TSA. Jason Ray. Jason wants to thank his family and friends for their constant support, the endless lessons, and the always reinforcing of the values that will allow him to effectively dedicate his time and effort to the service of those in need. All right, every graduation ceremony, I'm better at the silly, but every graduation ceremony has a poignant moment, and I wanted to invite Jordan down. Jordan's right here. He's got the microphone. Sadly, today, we would have recognized most likely Noah Reisman. Noah entered with all of you, and he was invited to the Public Interest in Pro Bono Pre-Orientation Program. Unfortunately, he passed away in September 2020 at the end of his first year. A foundation has been created in his memory, which will focus on racial justice, educational equity, and helping those in need. Jordan was going to say a few words about his friend.
Hey everybody. So anybody who met Noah, knew Noah, knows that he would have been here. There's no way Noah wouldn't have been in this room today. He not only wanted to help people who were in need who weren't here, but he helped a lot of us who were here. He had an uncanny knack for bringing people together and for uniting people around helping other people. And so just wanted to recognize him today and take a moment to remember him and honor his memory. So thank you.
Andrew Rebe. Andrew worked for the Suffolk County District Attorney Office. Olivia Sachs. Olivia wants to thank Dad, David Sachs, for always encouraging her to lead a life of service. Ali Sawari. Shout out to his family and friends for always being there for him and for having a support system that could make going through law school possible. He loves you all and his classmates.
W, if your last name starts with W.
Emily Schimmelfennig. Emily worked at the Nature Conservancy. Robert Scoot. Robert worked at the United States SEC. Keaton Shapiro. Keaton wants to thank all of you for your timeless effort and the many hours of your time. She's so very proud of all of you.
I forgot to thank my parents, but thank you very much.
Taylor Sheehan. Taylor's beyond grateful for the time she spent both at the EPA and the SEC. She learned a lot from her time there. Hannah Schlaffelman. Hannah worked at the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, where my father dedicated most of his career, but he wasn't a lawyer. Rachel Schulman. Rachel worked at the Queens District Attorney Office. Sazia Siddiqui wants to thank her family and friends for inspiring and encouraging her to make positive changes in her community. Samantha Sobers. Samantha worked for the New York State Senator Todd Kaminsky in his Environmental Conservation Committee. Brendan Stoutberg. He worked for the National Security Counselors and worked on a Supreme Court amicus brief, and his organization has the coolest logo. All right. Jillian Stern. Jillian worked for the General Services Administration. Jillian Timko. Jillian wants to thank her family for all of their support. She worked at the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights. Daniela Torielba.
She's coming.
Yunda Sai.
Nope, she's coming.
Oh,
she's
yay.
coming. She's coming.
All right, so we're going to do it again. Yunda Sai. This man single-handedly put flags in every moot courtroom. His tradition will live on, and deep gratitude and eternal debt to his family and friends and instructors. Yeah. Zoe Wage.
No, Zoe.
Okay. Vanya Wang. Vanya worked at the United States Court of Federal Claims, Office of Special Masters. Vanya knows a lot about intellectual property law. Christopher William West.
No, Christopher.
All right. John Wetzel. John worked at the United States Department of Justice.
Mom and Dad, I love you so much. Thanks for everything.
Aaron Weaver. Aaron worked at the Center for Biological Diversity. Ian Widman. Ian also was flying in, wasn't sure he was going to make it, but he did. I'm glad he was a W. He worked at the United States Department of Commerce. Erin Williamson. She wants to thank her parents for encouraging her to take any and all opportunities that interested her during her time at GW. She worked at the Copyright Alliance. Andrew Wise. Andrew worked at the US EEOC. Paulina Wizig. Pauline worked at the GW Law Criminal Defense and Justice Clinic. And I am told Sarah Winkelstein is here. Yes. And last but not least, Jason Zubada. Jason worked at the Superior Court of the District of Columbia. Please go. Go.
I just wanted to thank my parents, my family in Argentina, family in Miami, family all over who are watching today. Thank you for waiting until the Z's just to see me. And though it's not on the screen, I also want to thank the DOJ Office of Immigration Litigation for giving me the honor of working for them. And I'm looking forward to continuing working with them through the DOJ Honors Program. Thank you all.
Congrats.
Congratulations to the class of 2022. Please stay, yes. Please stay committed to pro bono during your career. There is a reason we recognize you at 50 hours. 50 hours is nothing over 3 years. It might be the reason you came to law school in the first place. And now we invite, yes, fun with Weird Uncle Dave. We now have a reception for you on the first floor of the law school. And we leave you with some words of wisdom from Robert Kennedy. If anybody wants to come down and get a photo in front of their slide, or just run out of the room, or if we gave you the wrong a certificate, come on down and tell me how I am bad and worthless. But happy, happy graduation to all of you.